Hi everyone, this is Lori with 3 Keys Astrology. And today is February the 10th, 2025. And I am back and I am giving you what you've been asking for. I started my channel out with a lot of criminal analysis. Now I'm a double Taurus with a Cancer rising, but Scorpio is my shadow side. And like many people in my generation, I'm going to be 63 this year. We have Neptune in Scorpio. So, like many of you, a lot of my subscribers and people in my private Facebook group are children, well, children to me, but people born in the 80s that have Pluto, Saturn, and Mars in Scorpio. And that makes us very interested in psychology. It makes us very interested in criminology. And indeed, when I was achieving my associate's degree, I studied deviant behavior. I studied forensic chemistry. And so I've always been interested in human nature. I began college with the idea to become a psychologist. And so once I learned astrology and opened a channel and opened a business, I started to do criminal analysis. And if you're new to my channel, I still have a lot of those videos on this channel that you can go back and see. And it's the analysis that I've done have a lot to do with forensic criminality. And I'm very interested in relationships because I'm a double Taurus ruled by Venus. And as a Cancer rising, many of you that are part of my Facebook group naturally were attracted to the kind of interest that I have, the work that I do. And you'll know that people that are Cancer rising, Cancer suns, and Cancer moon, the exalted moon, have a very protective, instinctive nature. I was born with this. And they say in my family I was meant to be a mommy. I was very motherly when I was really little, though I'm the firstborn of three. There are two sisters, there are three girls in our household, and then God would give me three daughters. So I'm hyper vigilant when it comes to protecting women, when it comes to being highly averse, maybe more than the average person, to people who misuse women and children. And many of you share that same ideology and same fiery passion that I have. And so on my channel, you'll see I did the analysis of Ghislaine Maxwell. It is so peculiar, so bizarre, so unnatural when a woman participates in the abuse of women, other women and children. That's some kind of maniacal. So I did the analysis of Ghislaine Maxwell, but I also did the analysis of her father and talked to you about her daddy issues and how she became the person she was. Her father actually introduced her to Jeffrey Epstein. They both died in these mysterious, peculiar, strange ways. You'll find those on the channel if you're interested. Then I took it a step further and I did the analysis of Prince Andrew. And a lot of the women that were abused by these nasty, horrible, powerful people actually reached out to me, as did a ton of people who had been sexually abused and misused. So it's no strange coincidence. I also did Amber Heard, Jada Pickett, when I was featuring stories on Black Moon Lilith, who is a mathematical point in the heavens. But she's an entity that we can really see in real time in our modern world in corruption and seductions and people that thrive, the conquer and divide kind of people who destroy other people's relationships. So not just Black Moon Lilith, but Pluto. Now Pluto's in Aquarius, and this interesting time when I'm going to bring to you some very interesting videos with the astrological perspective. We have a scandal brewing, and it's about to explode. I'm going to link the videos that I'd like you to see so you can really enjoy the facts about this. Some other people have done some really good work and are continuing to do their work, and I'm jumping in to give you the astrological scene behind the scenes, story behind the story. and the theme happens to be the empire of the Christian broadcast network that is Daystar. So if you're not familiar with Daystar, although now they're worldwide, this is a company founded by Marcus and Joni Lamb. Marcus Lamb is deceased now. He lost his life November 30th, 2021. So his wife, they were a co-founder, parents who brought their whole family into the ministry. And you'll know the names. Joel Osteen, a famous, wonderful minister down in Houston, Texas. He bought stock and placement and paid to be on the broadcast that is Daystar. Joyce Myers also did. Kenneth Copeland also did. Creflo Dollar, and there are others that I'll talk about as we go through this. But for today, I'm just giving you this quick and preliminary introduction with some links to other videos so that you can get involved in the story. And then one by one, I'm going to go through every single character involved in what is a giant scandal. This isn't the first time, though. And if you're old enough like I am, a lot of these television evangelists and these over rapacious ministers and these, they sicken me. They're fanatical. And it seems to me the more fanatical they are, the more unhinged they are, which ends up with scandal and solicitation and sexual misconduct. And so this isn't the first scandal this family is experiencing, but we're going to talk a lot about it because Pluto ingressed into Aquarius. We got a little teaser of it in 2024, but he's here now. He's in Aquarius and will be until 2043. So for the next 20 years, we are going to be experiencing Plutonian energy, and Pluto is the ruler of the underworld. He is a highly emotional energy, a highly provocative energy, and a highly seductive energy because he's the devil. So he's at the root of all sin. And Pluto coming into Aquarius will affect you. If any of your three keys are in Aquarius most profoundly, then it's going to affect Leo, it's going to affect Taurus, and it's going to affect Scorpio. Pluto in Aquarius, however, is an interesting dynamic in this story of the scandal at the Daystar Studios because it's the airwaves. Pluto in Aquarius is infecting, poisoning, showing toxicity in the airways and televisions and broadcasts and podcasts and communication systems, whether it's air traffic control or Pluto being there, causes problems, causes interruptions. There will be some kind of a death wherever Pluto is. Could be the death of a marriage, could be a physical death, it could be an emotional death. And then we've got Black Moon Lilith right now in Libra. Black Moon Lilith is the she-devil, and I've done lots of videos on her. I used to work for Astrology as well as having my own 3 Keys astrology practice, and I did videos on Lada. I'm not sure if they're still there, but if you're interested, you can find them on my channel. Have you ever known people that are just never satisfied, no matter what you do for them, no matter what they try to get for themselves? And it can come in the form of addiction. Nothing's ever enough. And it can be overeating. It can be any kind of indulgence where they're just not satisfied. It's because there's something empty. And yes, there are creatures among us that are soulless. The Bible talks about fallen angels. The Bible talks explicitly about evil entities. And we can't pretend that we're living in paradise because we're not. And so the issues that we're going to talk about are quite serious, and they're personal. And before I go into the first person, who is, I wouldn't call it the crown. You see, there are certain times that we astrologers can see when very famous people meet their destiny. And because they're involved with fame, it will be a public falling down, a public scandal that causes them to lose their crown or their position, their dignity, their esteemed position, if you will. So that's what we're witnessing now as a family crumbles. I do want you to tell you that while I'm an analyst and I'm coming in with a set of eyes that are trained by the science that is astrology, I'm still a mother. I'm a grandmother. I've worked for many people in my astrology practice that have been misused. Um, it's a terrible, terrible thing. And I'm going to tell you right at the get go that we've got a very Plutonian character in the mix. Now, in Greek mythology, Pluto wears a mask. It's a mask of invisibility. Sometimes there's little surveys and fun little things out in the social networks that talk about what would you like your superpower to be. And Pluto's indeed invisible to us on the planet unless you're telekinetic or you have a little bit of extra intuition or you're a trained psychologist or you're a criminologist or you're a detective, because the invisibility of Pluto is in his evil intentions and his motivations. In the study of human nature, that's the crux of why did they do this? Why did this happen? Intention and motivation, in a nutshell. And Pluto in Aquarius, there's things that are going on behind the scenes that you can't see that are coming out into the open. And that's what happens no matter what. There's a force on the planet Earth, God blessed, God given, that is more powerful than any evil. And that is called truth. And our justice systems are supposed to be based on this. Our political systems and people in high profession places of esteem, whether it's churches or courtrooms, truth and justice are the reason. Truth and justice are supposed to be the end results. And in this case, while we're going to be talking about dark things like I do when I covered the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, when I talked about how insidious and maniacal and Black Moon Lilith Jada Pinkett is, the things that she does, and the conservatorship. I started out my very first analysis was I did the analysis of Britney Spears. Not just her father who took the biggest rap, but her mother too. In this conservatorship where she was a slave and they controlled all of the money she earned, all the money she made based on her talent. So you can have fun in my channel if you can't sleep at night, because Pluto's amping all of our energy up. Most healthy people right now, especially if your Mercury is anywhere near the vicinity of Pluto in the astrological configuration, you can be really supercharged in your mind, curious and eager to research and eager to go back to college and very eager to learn. That's a super good thing. But in this dynamic, Pluto's mask within the organization of that which is Daystar, and I have it written down on another paper that I'm going to do for you that is the background in the biography. And I want to say, okay, here it is. It was around 2003. That's when Joel Osteen jumped in. Let me think. Okay, Daystar was born on New Year's Day in 1998. By 2003, big names and big, huge, influential Christian ministers like Joel Osteen jump into the mix too. And the way the money is profited in this not-for-profit organization, because they're under the guise, and I'm sure laws are going to get changed as more and more of this corruption goes on and on. So churches are tax-free. And any entity in the United States of America doesn't have to be involved with the IRS because their organizations are considered tax free. So Daystar calls themselves a church, but they're really the admin, even though all the family members and all the people and the founders and co-founder, and only one now is alive. Um, like I said, Marcus Lamb, Joni Lamb's husband, for, I didn't do the math on the years, but they got married in 1982. And he passed away in 2022, November 30th, 2021, November 30th. I'm sorry, 2021. God rest his soul. And the other thing is, in astrology, we really shouldn't look at the chart of people who have passed away for a year. We're safe now. So I have done that analysis, and I will be presenting that. You will be hearing the astrological makeup of Joni Lamb, the living president and co-founder of Daystar. You will be hearing the astrological makeup of Marcus Lamb, the decedent co-founder of Daystar and former president. You'll be hearing the astrological analysis of their oldest son, firstborn, Jonathan, his wife, Susie, their two daughters, Rebecca and Rachel, and their spouses as we go through this. We're also going to do the analysis of a famous doctor. His name is Dr. Doug Weiss, and he's quite a brilliant man. He actually has very similar stars to my own because our birthdays are days apart. And the moment I saw him, I knew he looked so much like a Taurus, though he's a late Aries. And so we're going to look at him too. He's a recent new development in the family because he is Joni's second husband after she lost Marcus. Now, Pluto in the airwaves and Pluto in the background. And again, every time you see me talk about the characters that are involved in this very big drama, huge scandal, I want you to think, no matter who we're analyzing, no matter who we're looking at, I want you to picture Pluto with his invisible helmet. No matter who we're talking about, picture an entity behind the characters we're speaking about who's dark, who's demonic, who's diabolical, and who can't be seen with the naked eye. But he's there, and he's not going away, and he's still there. In this mixture, when I was talking about the core of what Black Moon Lilith energy is, and I was talking about insatiability that comes from addiction, that comes from dissatisfaction, that comes from every vice like greed and pride and never being happy with what you have. People that have the disease and or dysfunction, I should say, of hoarding, they can't ever get enough. They need this or they need that. And we know people that are overspenders or people that are overeaters or whatever the indulgence is. So we're going to talk about, besides that, the best way whenever you hear people talk about Black Moon Lilith, and I'll forewarn you, there are astrologers out there that are very liberal, that are very feminist, that are very left-winged out there with their ideas. The truth of the matter is Black Moon Lilith came from the Hebrew texts. This is ancient, this is biblical, and she is not. They try to twist and turn it into some form of empowerment. But if your cause has to put down another cause, that isn't a true being, because there's room for everybody. God made each of us. There are not two people the same, not even twins. And astrology is like an individual fingerprint. It's like snowflakes that God gave us. There's not ever one that's a replica of another. That's true of human beings. So if somebody's political cause or their agenda-driven ideas have to put another entity down, they're wrong. And I'm telling you that because Black Moon Lilith's origin comes from biblical knowledge, you don't get to twist that and convolute it and start changing what its energy is. So the way that you can think of Black Moon Lilith is, think of a vacuum cleaner in the ethers. Think of this big vortex of energy that is a vacuum. It's sucking in whatever it can get. And it wants more of it, and it wants more of it, and it can't get enough of it. And it's empty. It's soulless. Inside, nobody's home. There's nothing pure. It's someone that I've known people, sometimes cultivated maybe by culture. I used to substitute teach in school. And I have my daughters. My oldest is 12 years older than my youngest daughter. And that was a change in generational energy for sure between my two oldest girls and the baby. And the things that went on when they were in high school compared to when when the baby was in high school compared to my big girls. And as a teacher and studying to be a professor, I substitute taught for 3 years. I was amazed at trends and changes. And so, cultivated by culture, stimulated by advertisement, believing, when we just look at our televisions, we are so seduced by so many things in the world of, in society, all with the reason and the attempt to make us purchase the idea, become the idea, look like the idea or the ideal. So I've known people that I'm young enough to know my mom was really young. She had me when she was only barely 16 by a week. And so we grew up together. And she was really pretty and really young and never really had a chance to be a teenager. And so some of my formative years were difficult because she was reliving or living for the first time the way she should have been living when she was young and without children. And in that time, it was the 60s. And we had a major development in culture with birth control. And so the generations before that, all of our mothers and grandmothers, lots of families had lots of children because we couldn't prevent pregnancy. And there came the 60s with the liberation and lots of extramarital affairs. The divorce rate went up. It was finally this freedom and sexuality was the theme, the cultural theme. So as we talk about what's going on right now, and back to my girls, when I was a kid, the little spin the bottle games, or when boys and girls got together when they started to have feelings for each other around 12 and 13 years old, it was, in my generation, people held hands. There wasn't a lot of premarital sex. It wasn't as predominant, but it kept getting more and more, to the extreme now that the guidance with these applications and this availability and pornography, which I hope the government starts stomping all over, and I hope our elected officials like Moody and Kristi Noem and all these other women in power start putting a stop to that. They're trying to with the human trafficking, but the porn industry, and then women dressing like their characters in films like that, or strippers on a stage. The things went from holding hands and being innocent to the swipe generation where you order people, to the fact that young impressionable females and males think lovemaking is what they watch porn people do. So there's a lot of really sick things going on in society that are Black Moon Lilith and Pluto that I'm 100% against. Good old-fashioned sweet values, honest love, all of that emptiness. Excuse me, please. And those are addictions too. People get addicted to that, and they want that high and that rise and that recharge. But that's not what real relationships are made of. Things that are worth it take time. They're slow. They're honest. So that vortex of energy that's insatiable, that's like a big black vacuum cleaner, that is Black Moon Lilith. She is in Libra. She's going to be going into Scorpio, and that's going to be a nightmare. But in Libra, she wants to destroy relationships. So she's the she devil. Don't think of her any other way. People liken it to, oh, women on top and feminism and equal rights. I'm all about equal pay when you're doing the same job. But a woman's supposed to be a woman, and a man's supposed to be a man. And children want a daddy and a mommy, not two daddies, not two mommies. It's a lot of corruption of biblical truth, and culture does that, society does that, all for the means of some kind of insatiable gain, esteem, notoriety, whatever it is. And in the story, I'm not going to go on and on for you. I'm sorry. I digress, but I wanted you to have a little bit of a taste of what's to come. The first person I have to start with in this saga, in short, I'll give you a little rundown. So this young couple, he is the one, Marcus Slam, who's deceased, had an extraordinary acumen, and indeed left high school when he was 16, entered college, got accepted, and earned himself a degree in theology. And then he became a traveling evangelist when he meets Joni. And Joni, her name is Joni Trammell. Then she married Marcus Lamb in 1982, and she just married Doug Weiss in 2022 or 2023. I'll give you the specifics as I go through the chronology of what's gone on. Joni was born on Tuesday, July 19th in 1960 in Colliesville, Texas. She meets Marcus Lamb when the family moves to Greenville, South Carolina, North Carolina or South, I always mix it up, one of those. And so they get married, have children. She loves to sing, and we'll talk about that. It's in her astrology chart. Now, as I do these charts, mind you, we do not know birth times. AKA in astrology, that means there's no definitive rising sign. However, I have done more than 10,000 readings in my practice, and I have done what astrologers call rectification. And for people who didn't know their birth time, that I did rectifications for, more than a handful of times, they would find the birth certificate later, and I was within minutes. Now, I had a traumatic brain injury, and my doing math and going backwards in time is a little bit difficult for me, so I can't calculate without a calculator and sitting down how many minutes there are in the 24-hour period, seconds, and whatever. But as you can imagine, people can be born anywhere from midnight to noon in a 24-hour period. That's a lot of minutes for me to come that close. And I don't often do that, and now my practice is too busy to do that, but my methods are pretty good. I do have an associate's degree with a focus in psychology, and then I studied a year of speech pathology at Fredonia State University, and then I went back because I had a baby that I wasn't expecting to have in the interim when I was on my way to become a speech pathologist. And then I went back to school again and was working on an independent disciplinary in medieval studies, and we modeled my program at Fredonia State after Cornell University. And I was within a week of graduating that when I had a tragic accident, and my life for the next 18 years stopped. And thank God, my brain stilled, my eyes stilled. I had severe nystagmus, so I would see 1,000 images and had severe disequilibrium, nauseous, seizures. My neck broke, my pelvis broke. My face is broken on this side, so my mandible came right off my face. Wait, my right side. I'm looking backwards at a camera. So you'll see the shape of my face has changed even when you see my videos when I turn there's no bone right here. I got hit and it broke my mandible, and then broke and cracked at the temporomandibular joint. I got hurt very, very, very badly. So all my dreams died that day, but by the grace of God, I slowly healed. Then I could read again and remember, because I couldn't do that for many, many years. And even though I don't have the good working memory that I had before my accident, you don't even know what this job means to me. because it's analysis and it's teaching and it's still all the things that I worked so hard from the moment I entered college with two little girls and newly divorced to go to achieve my dream. I just kept going to school. I didn't give up. I just kept going, working 60, 70-hour work weeks, going to college, plugging away, getting through. And right when I'm at the end, I audited my classes at Cornell. I chose my thesis. And then boom, I had a life-changing accident. So in this, as we talk about this, number one, many of you that love my work so far are moms and your grandmas. And many of you in the 10,000 readings that I've done have come to me, trusting me with your stories, the painfulness that you've experienced. There is not one family on planet Earth that gets by this world unscathed. Lots of people don't like their mothers. Lots of people don't like their fathers. Lots of fathers and mothers are heartbroken over children that refuse us. And it goes on and on and on. You're not alone. And so as I do these analysis, please know that I think you know already, those of you that have been with me, but if you're new to the channel, I get zero satisfaction out of people's pain and suffering. Zero. In my job, where I teach cure, where I am a healing, I'm a certified Reiki healer, 2nd degree. And a loving, caring friend, mother, family member, daughter. If you know me, if you're in my intimate circle, I care. I have never, ever been a gossip, and I hate people that do. They're not in my circle. I think it's a vile, evil thing to do that. So while we talk about the astrological dynamics of character and human nature, which is the focus of my course, the purpose behind that is that so we can have healthier relationships and we can observe by astrological configuration and transits and aspects and the bones of what astrology is, that we can identify those in ourselves and each other so that we can go to the right people for help when things get out of control. That's the whole point. And I hope you see that. So my heart breaks. And I found this maybe 2 weeks ago. Like many of you, I'm not needing a lot of sleep now, 4 or 5 hours, and I'm ready to go for the day, which is really welcome compared to post my injury when I couldn't even stay awake and coherent for 5 hours for years. I tried to build up, stay awake an hour longer. What did they say? What am I doing? Just traumatic brain injury is wicked. Anyway, so back to this. Please know, I'm praying for this family. My heart breaks for this family. And we'll get to see family dynamics. Now, I do legacy readings too. I'll analyze for your whole family and then your grandchildren and your children. And if you know the birth dates of your family members, if you've done your ancestry, it's okay if you don't have birth times. There's still, the planetary energy doesn't change. We just won't have rising signs. But believe me when I tell you, I can figure those out pretty well. So when I'm doing this work and you're enjoying and listening and learning this work, please know, even though we're going to be outing characters like I did with Jada Pinkett, I mean, honest to God, there's some really nasty people on the earth. Honest to God, there are people that can never be satisfied. Honest to God, there are people that have issues where they're completely in lack of any empathy or compassion. And they're dangerous people to be around, especially if you're sensitive, especially if you're naive, especially if you're innocent. And I'm going to start with Joni Lamb a little bit today. I'll give you a big, full, a complete astrological analysis, a deep one. But today is an introduction. So I've told you about how Daystar got formed. This young couple get married in 1982. They're around my age, although he's passed away. Doug Weiss is my age within days, and Joni Lamb's a little bit older. this young couple I can very much relate to because I'm getting married and having babies when they're getting married and having babies. So I know what's going on culturally, I know what's going on societally, and I know a little bit about our generation for sure. Not this swipe generation or the generation of ordering people for every, oh, it's just disgusting. To get people to do whatever you want them to do for you, from cleaning your houses to even other things. So, in the background, I want you to please, if you're Christian, pray with me. It would be a shame to lose Christian broadcasting, just like it's a shame when corruption happens in churches and then populations diminish and people don't want to send their children to places like that, because mankind destroyed that, not God. And it's a real shame to me when parents raise their children who don't know a thing about God. And it's a real shame to me when not to know that, not to have that. That's an integral part of being, is knowing where you come from, where you're going, and having a confidence or a moral fortitude within to help you navigate life's obstacles. And so it is my prayer for each and every member of the family, except for one of them. And I told you, keep thinking every time we talk about someone who's invisible, someone who's hiding in the background, someone who's lurking around that is at the core of this scandal, and then how we react to that, and then why they react the way they do, and what's going on. That's the family dynamic. And we're going to discuss it. We're going to talk about it a lot. This could indeed be a 3-month series if you're interested in coming back. So I encourage, ask questions, make comments, share this video, talk about this video. Let's really, really learn things that I can teach you about people's motivations, their intentions, their character, when we rise, when we fall, because we all make mistakes. And we can all relate to this. And it's heartbreaking. And I'm sure, and I think you know this, no matter how much we try to cope, no matter how much we try to say, oh, it's okay, when we have strife with family, within family, we're never 100% totally comfortable. We're never 100% totally at peace, because peace comes from understanding and listening and loving and supporting, and that's not what's happening. Again, Joni Trammell Lamb, now Weiss, this is her second marriage, was born Tuesday, July 19th, 1960, in Colliesville, Texas. The most significant thing to know when we do an analysis in the chart has to be the 3 keys, because your sun proves your being in this world. Your moon is your responsorial nature, your reaction, your inner feelings, and then the rising sign, who you present yourself to be in the world, the way you meet and greet the public. So it's not the same as you are really at home behind closed doors and in the quiet. And in each and every one of these cases, I do not have birth times. So I have not reconciled these charts. I don't know that I'm going to go that far, because I don't know that I need to. But we'll talk about that as we go along. So the first thing we learn about Joni Lamb is she has her sun at 27 degrees of Cancer. In astrology, we have critical degrees. Anaretic degrees are degrees that are at the very end of the planet is moving along. It's right at the end of the sign. So it's getting ready to move into signs. We see these suns when somebody's changing from a Taurus to a Gemini, or from a Gemini to a Cancer, or from an Aquarius to a Pisces. So it's right at that end degree, because each planet, there are 30 degrees, in each slice of the 12 constellations of the zodiac, hence the wheel, which is a 360-degree circle. So Ms. Lamb is born with her sun at 27 degrees. It's almost Leo. 27 degrees and 2 minutes. It's anaretic. It's critical. So that sun actually is at the end of the energy of Cancer, and it's more moving into the degree of Leo. Cancer and Leo are two really important signs in our zodiac in astrology because Cancer rules the feminine mother, and Leo is the fatherly paternal leader. So Leos are masculine, Cancers are feminine energy, but they're both leadership positions. And what makes them distinct from all the other signs in the zodiac are that they only have one planetary ruler. The ruler of Leo is the sun. So all of our friends and family with their energy that's made of Leo energy are ruled by the sun, the most powerful planet in our solar system. Whether you're talking astronomy, astrology, geology, it's the sun. It grows our crops, it gives us daylight, it's the big sun. So Leo people are very powerful, and it rules the heart. They're big, they're lovable, and they're warm, and they're nurturing, and they're big personalities usually, and they're powerful usually. Cancer, the role of the mother, the maternal energy, the emotional energy, the nurturer, the one who gives you nourishment. So when that sun is at the very end of Cancer going into Leo, it takes on the energy of both. It's kind of the dying mother going into a masculine form of something grand and big in Leo and sunshiny and bright. They even named the television broadcast Day Star. And the biggest entity in the sky, the day star, is indeed the sunshine. And so it's really interesting, first of all, without even going any deeper than that, to think something about the maternal energy is ending at 27 degrees of Cancer, and the person's going into a more public arena with the sun being in Leo, something more leadership quality, something in maybe a masculine world, something out there in the world, big, that everybody can see. So unlike the majority of moms in the time of our generation when we were born in the 60s, of course there were women who were in the workforce, but the majority weren't. And so the connotation of that generational time period was mom was at home, homemaking. But Joni Lamb's stars show that no, she wouldn't be doing that. She had some kind of Leo being out in the world, being some kind of leadership fate to her. Now, I haven't talked a lot about this to you. For those of you that learn astrology from me, because I teach astrology, when you come to my advanced astrology classes, we go into depth about some really cool bells and whistles to astrology. And I'm about to explain one of them. Ms. Lamb has her moon in Gemini. I'll come back to the sun with that teaser. Her moon is in Gemini. And her moon is in a big square to Pluto. And moon is population, public, everyman. Moon is the commonality of the world. It's the people in the world. She's got a square to Pluto. So she's got this heavy Plutonian energy in Virgo. So does everybody in our generation. I have it. Lots of you have it. Pluto in Virgo infers some kind of darkness in the verbal, mental expression. And in Virgo, the sign of the Virgin, you don't want Pluto there because there's something not very virginal. I made a new word. There's something not so virginal about Pluto being in Virgo. And I don't get into world astrology, but there will be lots of things. So because Virgo is the harvest, there would have been some kind of poisoning in harvest. Maybe that was the onset of spraying with pesticide or something back then. That's not what this video is about, so we won't go there. But just keep this in mind in your analysis. So the outer planets are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They only matter for the world at large unless they're connected to a personal planet. And when you've got Pluto near your sun, your moon, your Mercury, your Venus, your Mars, you better pay attention because there's a lot of juice. There's a lot of something going on behind the scenes that aren't the scenes. Well, the moon rules your family. And when you've got Pluto in a square to your family, even her early family, I would bet my bottom dollar has something dark and Plutonian about it. Pluto's family secrets, Pluto's taboo subjects, rape, sexual assault, abuse, misconduct, criminality, drugs, anything secretive and underhanded, all vice, all crime, Pluto. The domain of hell is what Pluto rules and is. And you can be living in hell on earth. And so she's got her moon in a square to Pluto. What's interesting is, in a deeper analysis, both of these signs, her moon Gemini and Pluto in Virgo, are ruled by Mercury. Mercury's the way we think, and it's the way where our feet carry us because our mind thinks it. It is indeed intention and motivation. And moon, your feelings, and it depends on the person in the analysis. They're interchangeable. What you think is the way you feel, and that's what you'll do. Or what you feel makes you think the way you do, and that's what you'll do. So whenever you think of Mercury, think of Mercury, the little symbol. He was the messenger of the gods. And think about a thermometer, the liquid mercury in a thermometer, up and down, up and down. Well, Gemini is a twin sign, and that can be mentally Geminis that are distracted, tired, hungry, upset. They get stuck mentally. They get anxious and nervous and upset because they get torn between two things, or they know they can see both sides of things and they're not sure which way to go or what decision to make. Indecision's a big thing with Moon and Pluto in a square. But the analyst Virgo and the Virgin Virgo, having Pluto there, not so good. Not so good. And because the moon is a public and because they're public broadcasters and trying to be Christian, there's something dark about what's going on, and you're not seeing everything that you think you're seeing while they present this illusion on the screen in the guise of serving and in the guise, not all the guise, partially, because I'm sure that they think they have Christian hearts, but power corrupts. So we have Moon square Pluto, both ruled by Mercury. So now we got to go take a look at Mercury. And in this case, and I'm going to say again, in honor of the late, great Nikola Stoyanovich, someone that I took little mini classes from. He wasn't by any means my formative teacher, but he was someone that I adored, someone who authored books, somebody who was very, very, very bright, and I would say borderline genius in his analysis and his collection in astrology, who was Serbian. He passed away, unfortunately, but he left us. He really made an impression. And Nikola talks about the 22 degree, kill or be killed. Mostly, that degree is a Capricorn degree, but 22 degrees is something to be aware of, and 18 degrees is something to be aware of, because Nikola, according to his theory, and there are lots of degree theories, but I particularly like him, and I have seen it play out in all the analysis I've done. So 18 degrees is a devil degree. There will be something devilish about the behavior of the character, and 22 is kill or be killed. Now, it doesn't have to be literal, because we can kill with our words, can't we? And when you have a Mercury at 22 degrees and it's retrograde, and she does, but there's more. So as I told you, when you're born with planets that are retrograde, it means that in this lifetime, you need in this lifetime to repair something. Any reword: repair, reinvent, recreate, reestablish, reconcile, realize, most of all. So Mercury retrograde means that there's something about the communication, whether it's incoming that you're not quite understanding, or you understand or think differently than the masses, or expression of communication. And again, think about those little feeties and where we go and what we're doing and who we're doing it with. And Mercury also rules the child. So the energy's childlike in its immaturity, because we sometimes say things we shouldn't do. No matter how old you are, you can shoot your mouth off and sound like a brat, which is childish. And so she has, if it's not bad enough that we're talking about a 22-degree Mercury in Cancer that is retrograde, that energy, that means there's something in this lifetime that needs to be worked on in her communication styles. Well, she has an opposition to Saturn, which means that she couldn't express herself the way she wanted to somehow. And that energy together is, you have something to say, or you really feel this way, or plus Moon Pluto too, is there's something stopping the expression of the way you really feel. Or it's being emotionally involved with something poisonous, something Plutonian, something diabolical, something that's a bad energy. And Pluto's a death planet and Saturn is a death planet. So the death of how she was trying to express herself or holding things in that were toxic and poison. And that happened. And her husband, who's on TV like these fanatical, ludicrous, ridiculous ministers preaching virtue and morality, all the while was having a 7-year affair with a program director at Daystar behind Joni's back. So Pluto versus the moon, something dark going on in the family. And then Mercury to Saturn. And if you say it, then the public that you're, so the structure of the company and how they make income that's tax-free, because they're a not-for-profit Christian organization, first comes in through all the ministers that decide to be on the channel. They have to pay Daystar for airtime, number one. Then number two, they do donations. And they're a ministry with call centers you can call, and they ask for money all the time, and they call it donations. Now there's some good work and good publication. I've ordered some things myself. I was completely, about 10 years ago, the first time I ever saw Joni Lamb, I thought, wow, I liked her. She's pretty and she's wholesome, and the whole family was involved. Wow, the Cancer mom, the family, Leo and Cancer, mommy and daddy in a ministry, and out there for the world to be things we can look up to, guidance we can listen to, a place and resource that's biblical, that talks about scripture, that if we're going through troubled times, we have these people. And by God, I do not want this to go away. And by God, I pray that they can reconcile and get along with each other. But we're going to keep breaking down. So people, I love Mercury retrograde people, by the way. My husband is one of my two of my students that I love, Annabelle and Angela, both were Mercury retrograde. What I like about Mercury retrograde is, so there's a couple of kinds of thinking. There's Epimethean and Promethean thinking. And people who don't blurt things out, they're quiet and they think first. For instance, shout out to you, Annabelle. She didn't say much. She was really quiet. And there were 5 of us we were the formation of a star, my 4 students and myself. And Annabelle least talked, next Angela. And then when I called them out to say something, we just went, what? Annabelle was so good. She's also a Virgo. So good at analysis. I mean, the best. And a great analyzer. So back to Mercury retrograde. Well, oftentimes they'll get held back at school, or the teacher will flag them and say they need to remedial this, or maybe they won't talk a lot when they're first born. We were very worried about my youngest grandchild with Mercury retrograde in the 12th house, by the way. He didn't speak for like 3 years. I have a really good friend who consoled me that I went to college with, whose husband is a prominent lawyer, and he didn't speak for almost 8 or 9 years. And he's this genius. And my little grandson, Chase, he does speak. And wow, is he smart. So I have a fond favor toward Mercury retrogrades because they're often thinkers and they're deep thinkers. And because of something early on, maybe speech therapy or something that they didn't quite fit in with what the norm was, or people mislabeled them or mischaracterized them. So they didn't they couldn't speak like me, blah, 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 blah. I was born talking, blah, blah, blah. In fact, we had a family friend who slowed me down. I read so fast and read the most books in first grade and graduated with honors, and still I'm a voracious reader and reread and just can't get enough. And I love knowledge, but I have a 0 degree Mercury. So that's the purest form of that. And mine is in dignity. It's in Gemini. So it's an honorable Mercury, a blessed Mercury, if you will. Mercury retrograde, in some way, was afraid to say what they really thought, afraid to get the wrong answer, maybe some kind of shyness. So that's one aspect. 22 degrees or something nefarious about the energy of the expression. And then when it's in an opposition to Saturn, you weren't allowed to say how you really felt. Well, can you imagine that you're making, because this company was like worth $225 million back in the early and mid 2000s. And they're a multi-billion-dollar company that is worldwide. Israel gave Daystar the first license ever to broadcast their television over there. And now they're in homes everywhere. And they're taking money in from everywhere. And the family Marcus drove a Maserati. They had Porsches. They have all these fancy SUVs. They have 4 or 5 mansions. They have big family. They call it working trips. And they are loaded. So can you imagine that your place in the world... Sorry, I have to get off my foot again. Oh, gosh. I have to get a better chair. And I'm so sorry about the aesthetics. I wish I was an astrologer who had a videographer and made you all these beautiful scenery videos and on and on. And I just don't. And I'm not so sure that I'm ever going to, but I can dream about it and wish it. But thank you for bearing with me and listening and learning and appreciating, because I am a good analyst and I'm a pretty good astrologer. So thank you for just taking me as I am. With my chair, and I've got my laptop up on a hunk of styrofoam, and sometimes you can't hear my microphone or I'll forget to plug it in, but I'm trying. So anyway, they are elitist, and they're in the top percentages of income in the United States of America. They're upper echelon and they're esteemed. And Christianity starts out in Genesis with the Bible story of Adam and Eve and marriage and fidelity, and it preaches it throughout the entire Bible. And that's the crux of our system, that you're faithful, that you're honest, that you're loyal, that there's fidelity, and that you'll prosper by these virtues of honesty and truth. Because I told you, bigger than Pluto ever, bigger than any evil ever is the truth. And the thing about the truth is that it always comes out. It's like a splashing water or bubbles or air. You can't hold it. You can't keep it down. The truth always comes out. So can you imagine that you followed this person that you met in your innocence? I don't know how innocent she was, because she had a boyfriend before she met Marcus. I've seen videos of her on talk shows talking about her life. And nonetheless, they meet, and then they marry. They have 3 children. They travel all over. Before, they had broadcast stations because they had a couple, and then went into television. They are on stages, so people are even looking up at them from the very beginning. And Joni has, and I'm not sure because I didn't rectify her chart, but the chart that I did throw based on what I was looking at, people who love to sing often have a prominent Neptune. A lot of actors and actresses have a prominent Neptune. And hers, like mine, is in Scorpio. So there's a bit of charisma around that energy, and there's a lot of us in that generation that had it. There's a fascination with mystery, and a lot of us from my generation have it. She and Marcus would both have that. So would Doug Weiss, her now husband. So, and I've done singers, Patti LaBelle and Mariah Carey, and they have prominent. So on the bones of the chart, when a planet is on one of the bones, that planetary energy is profound. And it's usually seen in the world if it's on the ascendant, the descendant, or on the midheaven. Not always seen when it's on the Imium Coli. So when we look at, and hers has a square to Neptune. So if the Mercury retrograde isn't dangerous enough at Nicola's kill or be killed degree, and she's got it opposite Saturn where she wants to express herself and say it, but she can't come out and cry publicly. My husband is having an affair with somebody that I go to work with every single day, that's the program director and in charge of sales for Daystar. I don't know for how many years that woman worked there, but they would see her daily. Their broadcast was daily. They traveled with this person. They went on location and did things. They took big trips and did things. They went to the Holy Lands. And this person was invited in, like it is, like it so it can be in family business. And can you imagine? Because a woman knows, especially a Cancer woman, especially a sun that's at an anaretic degrees. Her sun is ruled by the moon in Cancer. That's intuitive, that's feeling, that's nurturing, that's unknowing. But when your Mercury is 22 degrees retrograde opposite Saturn, if you say what you know and you say the truth, then the whole castle comes crumbling down of their Christian broadcast. Now they're no longer people on stage that we look up to and aspire to be, but now they're just like you and me. And he, oh my goodness, wait till we get to his chart. Wait till we get to his chart. But back to her. Not only does this Mercury have these complications in this lifetime, but something that I don't talk about often that I teach in advanced astrology is her Mercury is combust the sun. So what does that mean? And her sun and her Mercury and her Venus are all in a square to Neptune. And that's challenging, guys. I have read for people that are pathological liars. I know people that are pathological liars, and you'll see this configuration in their astrology charts. And the reason people come to that, have that mental issue of pathology in communication, is varied. One of the things can be they couldn't express who they really were early on, or they would be severely punished. So they started to hide things, and then they would get sneaky, and then they enjoyed other behaviors that were not moral and not socially acceptable, and that's how that happens. Mercury can also be a thief that's in a square to Neptune, taking things that don't belong to you. Could be other people's pencils or erasers when you were in grade school that go on and on and on. So she has 3 personal planets, her sun, Mercury, and Venus in a square to Neptune. Now, Neptune is fantasy and escapism. It's the singer. It's people we love to look at and we imagine we're in the movie, oh, that could be me, and I'm going to be the protagonist in my life, and I'm going to be the leading lady, and I'm going to dress really pretty, and I'm going to wait for my Prince Charming. And I do have to say, she picks really good men. Now, sometimes in our partnerships, because I do compatibility readings, we will pick a partner who has stars we don't have because we want to have those stars or we need that energy. And in this case, with her Mercury retrograde in opposition to Saturn and in a square to Neptune and burned by the sun, what does that mean? Early on, her father would have been an intimidating character to this little girl. And Cancers, whether they're anaretic or not, are soft and they're a little needy. Cancers want emotional security. And I'm a Cancer rising, and I fully admit to this. I have Sun square Saturn. My moon and sun are new moons. And that means they're burned. My moon's burned too. And that means, and I was afraid of my father when I was little. And it was justifiable. He was from another country. And they did things differently in Italy than they do in America. And I saw it with my own eyes. And then he did it to me, and he did it to my sister. And Joni had the same sensitivity toward her father. And we'll talk about that because I haven't gone in deep enough to know, but I suspect there's something about the father. In my own case, Sun square Saturn Saturn can also represent the father in the astrological chart or the husband. Um, my dad was a Golden Gloves boxer and an intimidating character. Not a very tall man, but a very strong man and a very opinionated man. And he hurt the women in his family, from his mother to my mom, his wife, to his daughters. And so that's hard. And like I said, I share a lot of the same stars, the generational stars with this couple in this dynamic, and Doug Weiss, the new husband, because of the time we were born. So I think it's never acceptable, and maybe that's why I'm such a warrior against people who misuse women, whether it's in trafficking, in prostitution, pornography, and participating in those things. I'm dead set against it. And maybe that's why I'm interested in my Scorpio shadow side of analysis. Why do people do these things? Why do they do what they do? Because I was a very young girl when I saw things little girls shouldn't see, and experienced them with both of my parents, Sun and Moon squaring Saturn, um, because my mom was trying to relive her youth, because she didn't have a youth. And my father was a lot older than she was and a lot more experienced than she was, and took advantage of her naivety and her beauty and her innocence. So Joni Lamb has a combust Mercury. And just like the word sounds, it means the planet's too close to the sun. And you can just imagine on the planet Earth, we can't really look at the sun. It'll burn the retinas in our eyes. But a planet, in normal astrology, part of it, if you come to me to be your teacher, Mercury can only be 28 degrees away from the sun. Venus is only ever 48 degrees away from the sun. So both of those planets are always in the orbit and gravitational pull of the sun. Excuse me. But when the planet is so close to the sun, and Mercury represents the child, the sun is the father, Venus is a little girl, the woman, if we're talking people, and both Venus is burned and Mercury is burned. So the expression of how she would love would be burned, and her communication style would be burned by authority, by something that she wouldn't be able to express what she really felt. Moon being in a square to Pluto, Mercury being opposite Saturn, and these two planets. So the sun is so radiant, full of radiation, and so hot that it's going to burn anything that comes close to it. And that can be a domineering father. There were a lot of people in our generation and generations before us, when men ruled the world and women stayed home, great-grandmothers and grandmothers and grandmothers, they didn't say anything. The dad he was the leader. And a lot of men were abusive in those older times and harder times, especially in harder times. And so women were, like they used to say about children, are meant to be seen and not heard. That was a generational thing. Women being only in the home and not out in the world to become worldly or to have commerce or to even have their own money were very dependent. So this would have been the dynamics of her family home. Combustion, when any planet, and we'll talk about that. Maybe I'll do a video for you of that. But come and learn astrology if you're interested. I'll teach it to you. So we have two personal planets, her expression and the way she would communicate, and then her ability to love and to feel affection and to feel cared for, are burned by the sun. The sun, as you mature, become a woman and get married, becomes your husband. And we often marry our fathers somehow. And that's just the way God made it. That's just the process. That's just the pain and suffering of life. Men marry their mothers and women marry their fathers. And maybe those marriages don't work out. The next one's a little better, or however it works out. But I will say that Joni Lamb married two very intelligent men, and they have stars that are quite stellar, both men. And Joni has, of course, she has delightful things in her chart. We're going to talk about that when I analyze the complete chart. But this is just the beginning of what's quite interesting. And while I told you to remember that there's something Plutonian always lurking in the background, in her lifetime with Moon square Pluto, and this is for any of us, Pluto, that's a dark entity against the public. So something's not being shown. They're making their family money and their livelihood and their fame and their fortune is indeed. There's something dark and hidden about what you see is not what you're getting. There's some things that are hidden and dark. And when your husband's having an affair with someone that you work with for 7 years at the same job, and that's not the only scandal that was going on, they've had several through the years. And that's sadly the marking of people in a society that are ungodly. And can you imagine that she's got to get up every day and get dressed, and she has little ones, and she's got to go on stage and try to earn money for the church and to keep up their lifestyle, because now they're living in mansions and they're driving expensive cars and they're taking expensive vacations to the point that they even buy a private jet. So we're talking a lot of money. And for a lot of criminals, and I'm not going that far with her personality for sure. However, there is somebody in the family that's a criminal. And like I said, just keep thinking when I talk, there's someone lurking in the background. But now when you involve yourself with people that are acting criminally, you get involved with that energy. Somehow, some way, you're not virgin of it anymore. You're not innocent anymore. You know something's going on. What's your part in the play? And it contaminates you. And like an invisible poison, Pluto comes along and contaminates your security, your happiness. That's the moon. Your home, your family, that's the moon, square Pluto. And then now because they're a public business, that's a Christian network that a lot of people become dependent on. The same reason we go to church every Sunday. That's one day of the week that I can go let my hair down and offer my things, my burdens to the cross, and take on my suffering and have Jesus there to help me suffer and help me understand. And we go to clergy and we look up to ministers and psychologists and professors and teachers and nurses and doctors to help us with Plutonian issues. But the person that's in charge, the advisor, the wise one, the one we consult, the one we're asking to pray for us, the one whose books we're buying to make this all happen, isn't telling us the truth. Now, I want you to know that what I'm about to reveal as we go along in these astrology videos is that there's more to the story than her moon Pluto really does get infected within. I'll tell you this example. I'll tell you when I do the historical background, I'll give you the specific dates, but so fame is really exploding in her head, and it's as big as her big hairdo. And they've got makeup artists on set, and that's okay. You don't want to go on and do videos and be public after you just rolled out of bed and you didn't shower for a week, for sure. I get it. I like it. I appreciate it. I like beauty just as much as the next person, and she is very, very pretty. But the exploitation and contamination and poisoning of Pluto to the moon, being somehow deceptive to the public, comes in a lot of ways. Okay, number one, are you really a church or are you a broadcasting company? Number one, to be tax-free. Number two, a lot of favor given to the girls. And I get bad feelings out of one daughter, good feelings out of the other. That's just my intuition. And what's really weird about my intuition is, like 10 or 12 years ago, the first time I saw Joni, I was all enamored. And then just recently, and maybe the last year, I caught her, because I'm not up late at night very often. And she had a show called Joni Table Talk that I really liked, with a bunch of women discussing women's issues and family. And that's the core of their broadcast. But remember, Leo and Cancer are the parents. And she's got her son right up there, right between both Leo and Cancer. And she's this parental figure and this representation of mother, the Christian mother married to the Christian husband. And he's the minister. And now the kids are all ministering. And now they all have their own shows on Daystar, along with all these other wonderful ministers that come to teach and preach the Word of God. And so I remember when I saw her again after not seeing her for many years, there was something I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I didn't have the same adoration just in looking at her. Just my intuition, but I didn't know a darn thing. until 2 weeks ago. And in my Pluto being right on my Mercury right now is really amping up my desire to learn, to know, to seek, to study, to analyze, to do more mental work. And it's a really beautiful thing. For those of you that have Gemini and Libra planets, Pluto and Aquarius is blessing those planets, unless they're in early or late degrees and there's squares going on. We'll talk about that if you come get an analysis. But for the majority, it's an upgrade to our mental abilities and our intuitive abilities and our telekinetic abilities. So something didn't seem quite right, and then gosh, because I am not requiring a lot of sleep, I started to see and then learn and then listen and then study. And yeah, this is, before I close with this video, I will tell you that the family were not very happy that she remarried in a very short time after her first husband passed away. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I've said this before, and you can disagree with me or not, it doesn't matter. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and I would like you to comment below. I promise I'll be paying more attention to comments, and I do care what you think. And I love when people have different opinions, and that I learn, and maybe you teach me how to think better than maybe I'm thinking. So anyway, they didn't really like the second husband. Well, that's not a new story, right? We can go back to Cinderella in Disney and the wicked stepmothers and the wicked stepfather and all these stories of broken families there. It's difficult. I'm not making light of it. Even if the children are out of the house by the time this takes place, it would be even more of a challenge because they all work together. So it's not like mom's doing her own thing and that's okay, I'm married and I'm grown up, and they all work together. They have been involved not only as a family but as a working family, and now business, and now mortgages are being paid and car payments and on and on and on. And the children have children. All three of her children have children. So Joni's a grandmother now. Now, as a woman, and I'm on my second marriage, although I went for 38 years without being married after the first time. And like Joni and Marcus, I was 19 and when I got married, and that marriage didn't last very long. But to their credit, and to anybody, gosh, you don't know much when you're young. You're in love and you're overcome with feelings, but you're not wise to the world, and you don't really understand other people. And that's why it's a good thing to wait until you're older if you can. But most of us don't listen. So she fell into that same thing. And as a woman who's divorced and on my second marriage, and as someone who believes that we should not give sainthood and angelic recognition to people that were dirty birds while they were living on earth, I don't believe in that. So I don't begrudge her 1 minute for, I think Doug Weiss and Joni Lamb are quite compatible. And I think, and I'll know more when I look at it together, and if you want me to do compatibility analysis for you, I'll do her and Marcus against him and Marcus so you can see what my compatibility readings look like, because you should know your own. That's my astrology practice, is about relationships, and it's important to know the little nuts and bolts of what's going on in the relationship. So I don't begrudge her. And what it would take as a woman to live with someone that has betrayed you for that many years, when you're raising little children and building a business and you have this big place in the world. And that's what happens. And like I said, I'm not calling her a criminal, but people who get involved in crime and earn a lot of money, stealing, embezzling, whatever they do, that they're getting big money. The bad thing is they buy these lifestyles, and then they got to keep doing the crime to keep up the lifestyle. And it's not any different when something goes awry, when you're in a situation, in a business, like they are, and then she finds out that he's had this affair going on, and then you still got to go home and go to bed with this person. I don't think that feels very good. And people stay in bad relationships for so many reasons. So I don't begrudge her. And when somebody passes away that's been a monster or an idiot or ugly, I don't pretend that they all of a sudden achieve sainthood because they're not here anymore and that we should not tell the truth about the way they treated people. I just don't. I think you should absolutely feel the way you do and be honest about it because they weren't any good. So I don't begrudge her for wanting to have love and wanting to be a wife. And especially a man like Doug Weiss, he's very smart and he's good looking and he's successful and I can see why they would be fall in love with each other. And so what happens is that ruffles the feathers of the adult children, first of all. And then by succession and inheritance, Jonathan is supposed to become president of Daystar, their oldest son, after when his parents naturally pass away. That's the way it's always been. That's the talk that was in the family. And then we've got the next born daughter, Rachel. She's the one I'm most suspect of. And then there's the daughter, Rebecca. And I have their charts, and we'll talk about those. I'll do a video for each of their charts. We'll talk about the astrological analysis. But Rachel has some hidden resentment for her brother and has a lot of characteristics, negative characteristics of her mother that are controlling and manipulative, and she wants that position. But no matter what anybody wants, when Daddy passes away, Joni remarries. And Doug had already been a guest on Daystar Television with his own wife since like 2010-ish. So this family has known each other. And that's not the problem, though. The problem has to do with the sexual abuse of Jonathan's little girl by a family member. And that family member is Rachel's husband. The youngest daughter, Rebecca, seems to be very sweet, and she's a Pisces, I know that much. And we'll talk about the dynamics in the family, and that's why I'm doing this video and this series, because again, here we're talking about more abuse in the family and then how it contaminates everybody, and this dark energy that's in the family that's behind the scenes wearing a little Pluto helmet that nobody can see isn't saying much. But that is the Pluto and Black Moon Lilith energy that's making this empire crumble. So I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you go look these aspects up. I hope you look in your own charts and pay attention. When someone has Mercury in a bad position to Neptune, that's the signature of the liar. Someone who embellishes, someone who doesn't tell the truth. In a good position, it's a very creative individual who can be an excellent writer or a musician or has favor with mercurial pursuits. But when it's in a square, it's problematic. And so Joni Lamb is not telling us the truth. And it would be in regard to her children, Mercury's child, in her love life, because Venus is burned and Mercury is burned. So with her children in particular, she's taking a lot of misplaced aggression out on her daughter-in-law, Jonathan's wife, a very beautiful young lady that is from Indian descent, I think. But that'll be something to be interesting to look into too. So being burned by a female is what combust Venus can be. Combust Venus is somebody who is insatiable when it comes to, they're never satisfied with material. They can be people who really overspend. They're never really satisfied in relationships, so she probably wasn't in her marriage. And then they can be usurped by a female, so the other woman. And now it's the daughter-in-law that can bring destruction to her being. And then the burned Mercury, it's her own son who's gone public to tell the truth about what's gone on and about the lies she's telling. And I do believe she's telling a lot of lies. And Like I said, she has a burn Mercury retrograde at 22 degrees. Kill or be killed by your words. That's happening to her. Her family is imploding. And it's a sad, sad story. Again, I take no pleasure out of this. And I hope that you pray for the family and pray for healing. But they're not going to be able to do that until they tell the truth. And that is how people heal. Truth and honesty. As hard as it may be, as painful as it may be, you got to tell the truth. And you got to get rid of the bad guys. So there's a hierarchical family fight going on over inheritance, about position. But will there be a company left after all of this? Maybe, but it might not be the people that we know that have been running it. And so I hope you enjoy this video, and please comment below and we'll talk more. I'm going to link to this video some other things where you can go see the historical. There's a really good investigative reporter that I like, The Roy Show, I think it's called, that I'm going to link that video to you. And you can see her speaking to Jonathan and Susie in that video. And then a couple others, and you can count on me to come back and start to give you one by one each member of the family's analysis. And that's why you can come to me also for your own family. If you've done the ancestry of your family, wouldn't it be great to leave for your own children? This was the character of Aunt Marge, and this was Uncle Charlie, and your cousin so and so did this and they did that, because that's the beauty of astrology. Take care. Bye for now, everyone. Thank you so much.